right. Well, tonight is going to be another very chill stream, kind of more behind the scenes type stuff. Um, like what we were doing last time, where you guys were with me while I was doing some prep. Um, Today, I am going to be working on a private project that I have just on the side. Um, Terry Pratchett is, or was, sadly, one of my favorite authors. Wrote some really incredible novels, and despite them being some of the funniest novels and fantasy kind of parodies that I've ever read, um, he also somehow managed to make them some of the most emotionally devastating um, simultaneously, right? Nothing like an author that can make you laugh and cry in the same book, sometimes in the same scene. And even though Discworld, which is the name of the fantasy setting that he created, is meant to exist as this sort of narrative universe where only the rules as they apply to characters in fiction are real. It somehow did an amazing job at also holding a mirror up to our own reality and kind of showing how stories and storytelling have shaped, you know, humanity from the very beginning. Um, before there was the written word, even, right? There was the spoken narrative tradition. And some of his novels even harken back to that and touch on that. Hi, Key. Life in the chat. Hold on, everyone, while I play. You know it's gotta happen. You know it's coming.
Key to life? Who's that? She's key, yeah, she's key to life. And she unwraps her heart when we see she feels life. Dreams may not start on time. When she's gaming, she shines. To hang with her and her friends, follow Key when the stream ends.
Okay. Hopefully that wasn't too painful, but you know I gotta give my girl her flowers every time she comes in here. How are you, Key? Having a good night? I was just starting to wax poetic about Terry Pratchett's Discworld and how it's one of my favorites, yada yada yada. You know, same old, same old. But I'm actually excited because I have a little craft project here to work on, which I'm going to explain in just a sec. I mean, craft is maybe a strong word, right? Transcription. We are transcribing today some words from one tome to another. And I think that if some of you guys maybe have already noticed the witch down here, this is going to be significant because Terry Pratchett has a series of Discworld novels that center or heavily feature witchcraft and witches, and they're sort of the version that you're familiar with, right? They're sort of your classic witches from fairy tales and folklore, but there's also definitely um, a twist on these witches. Terry Pratchett has very much um, kind of written a loving homage to um, witchcraft in its many forms and its various meanings across time in history with this series. Says Twitch mobile sucks, so I'm on PC now. I'm good. Just got home and gonna listen while I do the dishes. Aw. Well, thanks for tuning in. I hope you had a good day. Thanks for listening while you do the dishes. Oh great. It did it. I don't know how that happened, but awesome. Oh, 'cause you're a mod. Perfect. Good, good. Yeah, my day, it was kind of a sleepy one. I couldn't find my meds this morning, and it all just kind of led to a very sleepy day where mostly I have just been watching Eoneth and Beck Muffin play Monster Hunter. The new Monster Hunter came out at midnight, and they have been really enjoying it so far, and I've been enjoying watching it. It's very cinematic. Oh, Key, while you're here. Okay, before you look away, I've got to show you. I got new frames. Check these out. Look at, they have little kitty paws, or little puppy paws, but I think they're kitty paws. But look at the little, ah, are they not so cute? Yeah, very cat librarian of me, exactly. Trying to beat the cat girl allegations, but sadly, it just keeps happening. Okay. I also got these nail rings because my poor fingernails have been breaking like crazy due to some nutritional issues that I've been having. Um, so I just like put fake acrylics on the rings and painted them blue, and now we get like fun tippy tappies. So hopefully, I don't know if it's gonna get filtered out, but hopefully we're able to hear some. Are the blue cat to my pink fox, so it can't really die. Heck yeah. Speaking of pink foxes, oh my gosh, I really wish I could buy that pink stuffy. There's this adorable pink kitsune plushie that I saw online, y'all, and it's so perfect for Key. It's even got like little hearts and stuff. But unfortunately, because it's a bespoke plushie from a very small seamstress, right? It is worth a lot, and I don't, have that right at the moment. But definitely something I am going to be keeping an eye on just in case it comes out again. Yeah, Key read my mind. She says we can keep tabs just in case. All right. So, Terry Pratchett, I say, was one of my favorite authors because unfortunately he did pass away um a few years ago, and um a little bit like Tolkien, though, he had a large body of work and a large following before his death, and so there have been some collections and some supplementary books that have come out after his passing, and this is one of them. You can see the silhouette of the classic witch riding the broomstick. But when you take the book jacket off, the lovely book jacket, it says Tiffany Aking's Guide to Being a Witch. Let me put a better view of it here. Tiffany Aking's Guide to Being a Witch. And this beautiful artwork that has been done by Paul Kidby, I believe his name is, and he has been doing the artwork on the Discworld novels for a while now, but you can see the lineup of witches as we've seen them in the series. Oh, He says, it's dishes time. I'm gonna listen and thank you for showing me your cute stuff. Aw, you're welcome, Key. Thanks for tuning in. Um, so here we have Tiffany in the center, right? The titular Tiffany Aching. But then we have like Esmeralda Weatherwax, I believe, is over here. Nanny Og, right? And I'm gonna save for who the others are, but um, and what this is it's by Rihanna Pratchett and Gabrielle Kent. It's a collection. It's a reimagining. It's kind of a piece of meta-textual literature, where it's a book that would exist in Discworld, right? And it's almost as if we're getting this book here in our world. I'll read the little insert here, but oh gosh, look at these beautiful witches. Look at them. They're gorgeous. That's gonna be Magrat Garlic, I believe. Ugh, look at them all. This beautiful and practical guide has been compiled by Tiffany Aching herself, including snippets of remembered wisdom from Granny Aching alongside notes from Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Og, Miss Tick, and Rob Anybody, who offer their own unique perspectives on all things witchcraft. Whether you're a herbologist or a headologist, this book will inspire and empower new witches and seasoned practitioners alike. And then, of course, we get the real excerpt right from the publisher. The wisdom of Tiffany Aching and some of Discworld's most revered witches is brought to Roundworld, us, readers through writers Rihanna Pratchett and Gabrielle Kent, who, with colorful illustrations from Paul Kidby throughout. This brilliant in-world guide is the perfect addition to any Discworld collection, and I agree. Hence why I had to get my hands on a physical copy, although quite a while ago at this point, I'll say. And I've been just waiting to do this project. Now, speaking of quite a while ago, I've also had this, which is a beautiful, handmade, leather-bound journal or book, you could say, I guess. Right? It has this cord, but really not much else, and it is just beautiful inside. Um, the paper is even handmade, and that's not like a trick of the light or anything. It really is stained a very light, almost like pink. Um, and this would have happened in a tiny batch, as some kind of fluke, and the printer or the bookmaker wasn't even intending to do this. And I just saw it and I was like, ooh, factory error. I love it. Gotta have it. But I've been waiting forever and ever and ever because, like a classic book lover, bibliophile that I am, I, constantly am wanting more books and not necessarily always having the right project at the right time. But I think this is the right project at the right time because what Terry Pratchett has done in his Witches series is encode a lot of cultural understanding of witches and witchcraft and what they mean to us here in Round World. And he's couched it in such a beautiful way in Discworld. And what I would like to do in this transcription project is kind of transcribe back, right? So he's transcribed what he believes and he thinks about and what we as a culture believe about witches into his fictional world in his novel. And then these two writers, Rihanna and Gabrielle, right, have come in and transcribed that into this, like from his novels into this more condensed collection. And so what I'm going to do now is transcribe this more condensed collection of information about witches from Discworld into what I believe Terry Pratchett really truly believes and feels about witches and witchcraft, even in our world and our reality. And of course, I want to be a little tongue in cheek about it. I'm definitely going to keep the spirit of the authors, treating this like a metatextual artifact, a book that exists in world. And so that's what you see kind of on that first page, right? You're gonna have to pardon my handwriting. It is what it is. I'm at peace with it, right? It's not beautiful, but it doesn't have to be. This is also just the rough draft, so I've already kind of started to pull out some tidbits, right? Spill words. They are the things that people almost say but don't or can't. Doesn't that sound like a thing that should be real? Right? Doesn't that sound like something that should be real, that we should be able to say to each other here in Round World? Like, I heard your spill words. Okay, and let's talk about it. Because according to Terry Pratchett, that is a very witchy thing to do, to be able to hear. Um, Terry Pratchett says being a witch is about facing your fears and understanding that even if something isn't your fault, it is your responsibility. That was a big one, and especially in the Tiffany Aching books, the ones that feature her as the main character mostly. And I think that's an interesting concept to present as being um, related to witchcraft, right? Like, I think that the connection might not be so obvious to some people, but um, let's pause on the facing your fears for a moment, and let's jump straight to the understanding that even if something isn't your fault, it's your responsibility. Um, so what is Terry Pratchett saying about witches in his world and what he thinks about witches and witchcraft with that statement? He's, in my opinion, saying that witches are the types of people who are willing to take responsibility, roll up their sleeves, and work hard to fix something, even if they are not the ones who broke it. Right? They are the ones who are going to do that just because they see that there is a thing that needs fixing. Um, it's a type of community making, right? Where you are willing to step up even for something that you did not cause or is not your problem. Hi, Beck Muffin. Welcome in. We are talking witches. We are talking Terry Pratchett. We are transcribing. You are welcome to join in. Ah, yeah, the layering on that is not great, but I figure the way that the way that the transcripts jump around anyway, it might not matter. Let me just unlock that layer and try to switch it. Okay, I think that fixed it. Lock. Yes. Excellent. Okay. Um, and I think that, like, when we're talking about that interpretation, like, we're talking for a dead man, right? So literal death of the author here. But I think the novel goes on to kind of explain, and this book also, it's about being a voice for the voiceless and standing between the light and the darkness. It's about having a piece of string on you. And that's his sense of humor to a T, right? Here he is talking about light and darkness. Here he is talking about giving a voice to the voiceless. And then he's going to be talking about string. And yet, if you read the novel, it all makes sense. It all makes perfect sense. The string is just about being practical, which is another thing that the witches in Discworld are very concerned with. Gonna lurk for a few minutes? Okay, have a nice lurk. And so I think that's a really interesting point to make about witches, because in our world in fiction, witches are often considered to be the villains, right? They're wicked, evil, they're disruptors to society, right? They what are we talking about them engaging? They are often in cottages in the woods, a part of society, not, contributing to it. But I think what Terry Pratchett has done is juxtaposed a view of witches that is kind of the outside looking in, and a view of witches that is the inside looking out. And so, in most of our media representations of witches as villains and as hermits, they're also wise women who have secret knowledge and have a lot of agency, right? They can and do things that impact the community and their environment. It's just in a scary way that causes change. And I think that what we're starting to doubt here through Terry Pratchett's interpretation is whether or not that truly is a good or a bad thing. And then, of course, the just being practical. Um, when we're talking about a voice for the voiceless, right? That is advocacy. Um, that is a very beautiful and poetic way of describing being an advocate and speaking up when there is silence surrounding an issue, right? Um, and I think in the case of um, the novels here, Terry Pratchett is talking not just about things that are literally voiceless, like animals or natural resources or places, but also individuals and groups of people that may have literal voices, but not have a position or authority, right, to be heard, or a platform to be heard. Which I think is very relatable, again, to the notion of advocacy in the modern age. Has a platform and who doesn't, and what the responsibilities of those people are, is very much a live conversation that is going on in real time. And where people fall on the spectrum varies. But in the case of a witch, for better or for ill, a witch is going to voice those things and more, and carry a piece of string. I really love this quote, so I brought it from the collection here. But it says, "You are all the witches that have come before you and will come after you." That you don't have to do all that, Terry. Sir Pratchett. I'm sorry. I should be more formal. You don't have to do all that. That's just a beautiful sentiment. I love the notion that all of these unrelated people and all these different generations who might not be genetically related, might have no true heredity as we kind of consider it, still they are the progenitors and the inheritors of an incredible legacy. And as far as Terry Pratchett is concerned, a real legacy that does exist in our world, right? About people that are brave, people that take responsibility for the world, and people that are not going to let things happen in silence when they should be called out. So, all of that to say, I'm just trying to catch you up to where I kind of am, and you're going to see how it kind of is like that. Okay, here we're going to get to some definitions. So this is established, I think, in the Tiffany Aching series, but First Sight. I think this is a really fun this is a really fun play on Second Sight. which is a concept in a lot of fiction. Think Spiderwick Chronicles, for example. And in folklore too, right? That the fae or supernatural forces um, are invisible to mundane people. They are able to glamour themselves or hide their true visage, and only those gifted with second sight are able to see through that illusion to um, the true fae or spirit or supernatural creature that is there. And so Terry Pratchett has kind of made a fun twist on this by calling it first sight. The ability to see what is really there rather than what they assume should be there. Interesting, right? Because that ability, I also call that wife vision. Um, and, we can joke all we want, but there is a phrase called, that goes something like, if it was a snake, it would have bitten you. And that's to say that sometimes we are able to look at a scene, and even though we are taking in everything, we are not processing that information the same. Some people will focus on some details, other people will focus on other details, and some people won't focus on any details at all, right? They are not really processing the information that their eyes are taking in, but rather they are assuming certain details. That is a shortcut that the brain takes in order to save processing power, right? Instead of memorizing the color of the sweater of the pedestrian that you passed on the sidewalk this morning, if you try to remember at all, your brain will probably just fill something in that seems about right, and you won't even notice. It'll feel just as true as if it was, well, what really happened. And this happens when we're looking at scenes that we're familiar with as well. I mean, how many times have I been searching around my library for a specific book only to realize that it was on the shelf in front of my face the whole time? More than once, right? Like, so even with the best filing and organizing systems, if you just get used to seeing something, even sometimes with those systems, it's even easier to let this happen. You just stop seeing what's really in front of you. Um, so this is a fun little riff on that, right? I think it also has to do a little bit with like uh, social conformity. Think about the Emperor's New Clothes, right? That fairy tale about the con artists who tricked this emperor into thinking that he was buying these beautiful, rich new clothes, but they told him that only the best could even see them. They're invisible to lowly simpletons, right? And so everyone pretended to be able to see these clothes, just because of social conformity, right? And social pressure. Until a child, somebody unaware of these factors, was able to point out the absurdity of it all, to see what was really there. And what was really there was a whole lot of nothing, right? Um, and then we come to another little play on words, another little play on that concept: second thoughts. The ability to observe and think about the way one is thinking. This is really, really interesting, and I think that this is Terry Pratchett being on to the whole mindfulness craze way ahead of his time here. Um, in the first novel where second thoughts appear, as far as I'm aware, is the Tiffany Aching, right, like her first novel, which is The Wee Free Men. In that novel, we are privy to Tiffany's thoughts through a third person limited, omniscience here. And so Tiffany is thinking, we're privy to her thoughts, and then she kind of says, "Wait a second. that thought was sort of, I don't know, that thought was sort of suspect. And then she goes, wait a second, wait a second. Did I just have a thought about my own thought? And yeah, pretty revelationary for like an 11-year-old girl, I think, at the time. Um, it's kind of a funny joke because second thoughts is usually something, um, an American idiom at least, to mean that you are having doubts about something that you've already decided on. Second thoughts is very typically used in reference to marriage proposals, right? Like, oh, is the bride having second thoughts? You know, is she getting cold feet? Having doubts about whether or not the wedding is going to be a good idea after all. And yet, I think Terry Pratchett has taken it in a brilliant direction, um, because what can cause doubts in a rational person might be thinking about the nature of the thoughts you're having and the way one is thinking, and questioning whether or not that is the ideal, you know, uh, headspace to be making certain decisions out of. Um, I really think it is the way that a lot of people talk about mindfulness, I think. Um, and then of course we have the words here: hard, sharp, and stubborn. These are just common traits that witches have. Are not necessary to being a witch per se, but I tick all of these boxes in certain regards, so hence the check marks. And that is about where I left off. As you can see, the next page here is blank. And so I haven't really gotten far at all. And what I'm wanting to do here now is continue my read of this, metatextual guide from Miss Tiffany, and continue to kind of break it down, to notate in my fancy leather-bound journal here what I think is a significant comment on, witchcraft, and something that potentially is being extrapolated from our world, or that can be transcribed back into our world, right? And so we're doing kind of a literal transcription effort by copying, And of course, here we have some more metatextual, pieces. These are supposedly letters, right, between Esmeralda Weatherwax and Nannyog, right? Ah, so here we have Miss Lettice Earwig, or Earwiz. I don't know. She tried just to pronounce it in a fancy way. Um, Pronounced Awish. Of course. She even says it at the bottom. Her signature. So from the first couple pages, that's where we've already gotten that first few pages of transcription. There's, of course, a young Tiffany. This would have been her, she looked like in her first kind of debut, right? And there's Rob Anybody, the Feagles, the Knack-Mack Feagles. They are the titular We Free Men of that novel. Becoming a witch. Ugh, look at how beautiful this is. So this is Jenny Greenteeth, as you can see noted. And she is a fae creature that invades during the first novel. So it says, Becoming a Witch. They say that you don't find witchcraft, it finds you. In my case, it found me in the form of Miss Perspicacia Tick, a witch finder. She sensed me in a shamble, and using a saucer of ink as a scrying device, she watched me fend off the water-dwelling monster, Jenny Greenteeth. As a witch finder, Miss Tick searches for potential witches in places where they are unlikely to be otherwise spotted, or where they might suffer hostility from the locals. However, all older witches keep an eye and ear out for young girls who show ability. This doesn't just mean girls who accidentally levitate annoying siblings or turn bullies into frogs. Okay, some witches do that. Some of them do, apparently. Okay, thanks, Big Back Dirty Dog. You're awesome. I can't see that handle come up and not think, wow, that nice guy. Hope he's having a good day. Um, so this log is very fun because what it's doing is, of course, it's in the first person of Tiffany, who is in this novel. But you've got to understand that Discworld is a narrative universe. It is a world that adheres to the narrative rules of fiction, and yet is also a living, breathing world. And how can those two things collide? And so when Jenny shows up in the novel originally, it's almost unbelievable. Tiffany has a book of fairy tales, and she's seen this creature in that book of fairy tales. And so rather than thinking, oh no, this is something outside of my realm, she instead decides to arm herself with a frying pan and, well, take matters into her own hands. Very witchy. Okay, some witches might be discovered by exhibiting such abilities, but as Maeve, the old Kelda of the Chalk Hill Feagle clan, Kelda being kind of like their wise woman, their chief, um, told me it can just be someone who thinks in the right sort of way. Witches typically have first sight, they see what's really there rather than what they assume should be there, and second thoughts. they observe and think about the way they are thinking. Mentally, they are typically hard, sharp, and stubborn. You'll also know a witch by looking for the one running towards trouble rather than away from it. So that's definitely Tiffany's uh way of sort of being found out here. She decided that this was her problem, this was her business, and she was about to get involved. But what do they call her? Something like they call her like a prohibitory monster, right? In that she is something that is supposed to lurk in shallow water and jump out and drown anybody who is being kind of careless around the water. And so she's much like a kelpie, right? Like in real life, a kelpie is a water fae. I say in real life. In our world, a kelpie is a fae creature that is beautiful, oftentimes a horse, and entices people to come into the water and be drowned. Tario, hey, welcome in. Thanks for stopping by. We're talking about um, uh, the Fae here, this Jenny Greenteeth, um, and how she is very similar to various water spirits and Kelpie-like folklore that exist in real life, right? Sirens in the ocean, but Kelpie in fresh water are definitely a thing. Um, and what what anthropologists and historians think that these types of monsters serve in society and folklore is as a cautionary prohibition. They are a mechanic that is meant to warn people of danger without necessarily explicitly saying what the danger is. Right? The danger is a fairy. The danger is Jenny. When in reality, the danger is just fast moving water and not really the ability to swim. Right? Accidents happen all the time, especially to children. And so inventing a scary monster might be a better way to protect them than just reminding them to stay away from the river over and over again. Welcome back, Beck Muffin. Ario says the goddess Fae. Um, Fae is in like fairies, elves, Fae, um, like you know, in the folklore sense, right? The fair folk that you hear, or in Shakespeare, right? Peas blossom, uh, cobweb and mustard seed, right? They're fae. What is his Robin Goodfellow? Oh, thank you for giving Tario a shout out. Again, the nails, they're cute, but they're not made for typing. Call to magic. Witchcraft can be learned, but magical ability is often hereditary. Lily, the sister of Mistress as being distinguished as separate from magical ability. They're two different things. Witchcraft can be learned, magical talent can be inherited. And I think that's just true necessarily, potentially in our world too, at least the conversation as far as Terry Pratchett's time, right? Um is the ability to sing like an angel something that singers and professional performers train their voices for and study and learn and practice? It's a craft. Sure, absolutely it is. But I think there's also something to be said about certain people having a certain vocal quality um, that is that has mass appeal, and whether or not that mass appeal is cultural or genetic is not necessarily important. What matters is that there is harkening back to that concept of cultural consensus. There's consensus that it is desirable, and we consider that to be sort of talent or the magic, right? That makes something exceptional or someone exceptional, beyond what is considered learnable. But let's think about this. If Terry Pratchett is saying here that magic is not necessary to being a witch, and I think that's important because he's saying that the rules that he is laying out, the roles that he is laying out for witches and witchcraft, can be applied to the real world, just not the magical parts, not the fantasy parts that he has written for the lore of Discworld, right? The yeah, like Taria says, the celibacy equals less sorcerers thing. So I think what we'll put in our transcription is this. Um, therefore, I guess like witchcraft, Pratchett craft. What should we call it here? Terry. Therefore, witchcraft I'm gonna go with required because I'm scared of trying to write necessary in front of y'all. Not required. Practice. Craft. As find herein. We follow the call to witchcraft for different reasons. Nanny Og tells me she started in the craft to get boys, whereas Mistress Weatherwax started out to get even. More successfully, Esmeralda Weatherwax amends. Me, I did it so that I could look after the hills the way Granny Aching did, so that I could become as good as she was and return to the chalk better than I went. Like, love me some Granny Aching. Beck Muffin says, what I love about Terry Pratchett's Witchcraft is that it's really focused on helping others. The magic is kind of secondary to just being helpful and supportive. I agree, right? It's something that I think is, you know, what we are supposed to take away from the outer trappings of the witchcraft. The magic is almost a distraction, like you said, it's secondary to the understanding that even if something isn't your fault, it is your responsibility about being a voice for the voiceless and standing between the light and the darkness, right? It's being helpful, being supportive. Sometimes those are the ways that you stand between the light and the darkness, more so than going out with a sword and a shield and a fireball, right? Those are the real ways that we can in our daily lives start standing between the light and the darkness, even if we don't have scary magical wizard kings to go fight or, you know, dragons to slay, right? Let's make friends with those dragons. Dragons are cool. Peak Nanny Og and Granny Weatherwax behavior. Absolutely. Back my phone. Absolutely. Um, and I like how, like, at the end there's kind of this little bit about bettering yourself too, right? Like Tiffany says, I wanted to be better so that I could live up to this woman that I respected and admired. And what she's saying is, I wanted to be a woman that I respected and admired. And I just think that's neat. So I'm gonna also put here, aspire, become. There. Not literally become that person, but rather to add yourself to that roster. Maybe I should clarify. The one. Tario says, normally witchcraft is shown to be a selfish art, and I think that's neat too. Yes, Tario, that's a really good point. And I think that Terry in the nuance of these novels is saying that they can be both, right? Witches can be both, because let's go back to our list here, right? Hard, sharp, stubborn, selfish or not selfish, you know, are not on there as being qualities, oops, of a witch. And in Tiffany's own novel, the way that she is able to conceptualize of taking responsibility for things that are not her responsibility is by claiming ownership, right? She says, these are my hills. These are my people. This is our ancestral land, right? That we have stewarded over generations and generations. And I think by taking ownership and saying this is me and this is mine, that is how she is at that young age able to kind of conceptualize of taking responsibility for something like a community, right? Or a stewardship of land. Sorry, so just to clarify, it was the young lady that wanted to be like the woman she respected that I thought was neat. Yes, I understand. That's how I understood it, Tario. So thank you for clarifying. Welcome back, Key. Okay. Now here it looks like we have a little another little piece of interstitial metatextual narrative here in the form of a little insert from Miss Lettice Arwige. She says, I can categorically state that the marital relations have no negative impact whatsoever on magic. In fact, the energy created during blah 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 blah. Okay. So the fun thing here is that when you read all of the witch novels, you get an idea for who these people are, and Miss Lettice Arwige is like a fancy pants lady who is very concerned with appearances. And remember how I said that the witches in this are varied? I think Mrs. Lettice is a example of kind of modern new age spiritualists and quote unquote, Etsy witches who just sell crystals and various spiritual practices. There's nothing wrong with that, of course, but you've got to separate what you're talking about, right? If you're talking about the spiritual practice and the crystals that, oh, hi tacos, the tacos loves, you've got to make sure that you know your audience. And so what Terry is doing here is by separating out the various incarnations of witchcraft and what that means into different characters, he's giving us a sense that there is some variation in this world, that witchcraft in his world is not a monolith, right? It is like the real world, nuanced and varied, and there are differences of opinion. And so this is just what Mrs. Arwish thinks. I will do that hydrate. I don't know if I did it already and I just forgot, but here we go. Sipping. Here's my cup. I'll do some tappy taps. Okay. Delicious. Okay. Cup ASMR. You're welcome. Thanks for redeeming the hydrate. Oh wait, I think I have something for this. Is it on mine only though? Maybe. Oh yeah, because I think it's too. Let me just make sure that I have the volume on it set correctly. Before I go activating anything that doesn't need to be activated. Okay, I'm gonna turn the volume on it down a little bit. so funny. But it's so good. I miss the little Pop-Tart cat. Oh, hey, welcome on in. Man, bear, onion. Interesting. Can I just call you Onion? Or are we going by Man Bear? Either way, I hope you're having a good night. I hope you're enjoying yourself. Welcome on in. Yeah, it had the little sombrero and everything. It just makes me happy. Hello, and call you as you please. All right. I think we're gonna go with Onion just because it reminds me of Steven Universe. Is he half man, half bear onion? No, he's half man bear, half onion, asserts Taco. Taco, does having onions as a constituent ingredient of tacos make you an expert on these things? Is that what you have like a sort of insight into because of the whole taco onion connection, or is it really just more of a hobby on your part? Beck Muffin says 1/3 man, 1/3 bear, 1/3 onion. And Key chiming in with almost the same concepts. Meanwhile, Man Bear Onion is just sitting back and watching the chaos unfold as we all speculate wildly. Aye, welcome in. Happy Friday. I completely agree. Terry Pratchett is like one of my favorite authors of all time, and so prolific. Did some of my favorite writing on fantasy and folklore and the role of fiction in our lives, and then had the audacity to make me feel grief. Passing away, how dare. Anyway, moving on. Have training and apprenticeships. It's traditional for a young witch to be taken on as an apprentice to an older witch, living with her rent-free and paying for training by helping with the chores. In many cases, this means doing all of the chores. Apprenticeships aren't really about teaching us how to do magic, more to help us understand what we have been doing all along. You'll learn the messy, medicinal side of being a witch, the importance of going around the houses, as well as how to avoid situations getting to a point where you actually need to do magic. Yeah, because in this world, they are treating magic like a last resort. It is something to be used sparingly, and to not have to use it at all is actually a victory. Messy underlined here with Miss Granny Weatherwax's note says, it's all messy, and that's why most of us wears black. So, again, another little funny, from the outside looking in to the inside looking out. From the outside looking in, it might look like witches are all wearing black because it's, dark and morose and goth and, grief-coded. Whereas in reality, Granny Weatherwax, at least in her wisdom, is saying, it just doesn't stain. It just doesn't stain. You can do whatever you want. You can get as messy as you need to get, and it just doesn't stain. And honestly, that was very influential on me personally in my wardrobe. I took that to heart. I was like, I can't ruin my clothes with stains from eating and, you know, running around in the grass and getting dirty if it's all black. None of it will show up. It will hide all of these sins and more. So I'm with Granny Weatherwax on this one. It is just practical. Oh, Key, thank you for the giving I that shout out. For everybody that doesn't know, I is a streamer. She just recently got affiliate or the offer for affiliate. I have been working with her behind the scenes to try and get her as optimized as possible, and we just recently got her mic up and running. Very exciting, very e-girl. So definitely check her out, especially if you like this sort of thing where we sit around and talk about books and read and nerd out about our, you know, favorite writers. You will definitely have a good time hanging out with when she is doing one of her poetry streams. Black is the only choice. Okay, I have to catch up with chat here. Tario says wearing black is just cool, but also less laundry. Yes, see, you get it. We go down to, yeah, black is the only choice. Aw, you're welcome. So, I kind of want to include that though, because I think it's fun, and certainly words that I lived by. And like I said, there's this emphasis on practicality for Terry Pratchett's witches. Black doesn't just look cool; it's practical. But I think the point here is that witchcraft involves a lot of labor, which may stain clothes, erase black and other dark colors are practical. But I think also, you know, and this is more of a real world, but consider specific forms of P. And that is just personal protective equipment, right? That's more of a nod to us, and less from Pratchett, but I would be remiss if I didn't include it, considering it is something that I think about a lot. Beck Muffin says, the problem is when multiple people in a home wear all black because it gets very hard to sort the laundry. Indeed. But hey, what are we doing sorting laundry? It's the year 2025. I want a robot. I want a robot. I don't have time to be sorting laundry. Where is my laundry sorting robot that I was promised? Enon, girl of the future. Anyway. And I think, like, so he's using witchcraft as this metaphor, right? But I think what we can extrapolate from this, right, is that helping and caregiving are difficult and messy sometimes, but are necessary roles a witch may fill, right? Or yeah, I'll just put fill. I mean, just think about if you've ever had to babysit a small child, right? And I think small children are pretty notoriously messy, so we all kind of get that in terms of caregiving. But there's also senior care, taking care of, the elderly. There's also disability care, taking care of and caregiving for people that need accommodation in order to function in the built environment that we've created. And a lot of that is not glamorous, is not um, the kind of thing that you post on Instagram, right? It's awkward, it's embarrassing, it's messy, it's human. And it is all very much in keeping with the realm of things that the witches in Terry Pratchett's world and imagining do. They are the nursemaids, they are the midwives, they are the the medicine women of their towns and of their communities, and they hold knowledge that the average person doesn't have. And so when the average person is facing circumstances that are beyond their capability to cope with, who does the community turn to care for them? In Terry Pratchett's imagining, it's the witch. Tario says, laundry robot, what is my purpose? You do the laundry. You do laundry. That's it, laundry robot. Has existential crisis. Listen, if I could have my life's purpose be explained to me and it was as simple as do the laundry and I was free to have the whole rest of my existence to myself, to self-actualize for no purpose other than my own enjoyment, I will take it. All right? I will take it and run. And then I will come back and do the laundry, but then I will run because life is not always laundry, baby. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is laundry. But not always. Fence! Oh my gosh. I get to do all of my things in one night. What is this?
Pika-pee, Pikachu?
Sorry, I don't have that one up in the buttons yet, so it can't, I don't think anybody can like actually press it. But I'm working on it. I just don't remember how to. Oh wait, no, maybe it is here. Wait, why are there two of them? Wait a second. no other witch will take you on. Though there are exceptions, one Ramtop's witch was so strange and fearsome that apparently, even if you left her after a single day, another place would be found for you, and no one would say anything about it. I wonder if that's Granny Weatherwax. I can't remember exactly, but I think she was in the Ramtops. And so that's a pretty explicit one that I think we can extrapolate out and transcribe, which is need to be able to stick with and endure tough situations. And I will, of course, I'm gonna ampersand off here, but I think we can extrapolate that out. If we're leaving off the part about the apprenticeship, right? But having some fortitude and endurance is certainly a quality that can apply to pretty much anyone. And yeah, Tario, the nails are so much bigger than my nail beds. Like, I don't know if you can tell, but these acrylics are much bigger than I would normally wear. And so they might look a little goofy, but they are serving the purpose of keeping me from nicking my fingers on things, especially when I go to, like, need to separate things like individual pages, for example. During my own training, I stayed with a few witches, each with very different skills and specialisms. Okay, there's some word nonsense going on here. I promise it's not just me having a stroke. Special isms. All right. You can go ahead and tell me how you would pronounce that. Cuz my brain went immediately to specialization, but specialisms, which helped me become the witch I needed to be. My first apprenticeship was with Miss Constance Level, a research witch. Miss Level taught me about the doctrine of signatures, a school of thought which states that plants and herbs give you clues as to what they can treat by resembling the parts of the body where the ailment is suffered. I do think that was a real school of thought. I'm not 100% on this, but I feel like I've heard that before in folklore, at least. Whether it's true or not, I don't necessarily know. But certainly something that Pratchett has a bunch of weird folklore knowledge that he sprinkles in. So it very well could be something that people really believed. Backpack Muffin says, I believe so. It's one of the expressions of the, like, cures, like, idea. Yeah, I think so. Here we go. After Miss Level, I spent some time with both Mistress Polunder and Old Mother Dismas. Mistress Polunder also focused on research and experimentation and taught me a lot about soil enrichment through her experiments in pedigree earthworm breeding, as well as how to tune wind chimes to repel demons through harmonic dissonance. That's so funny that that's in here because we were playing Monster Hunter Wilds earlier, and it's literally a plot point in the first like 5 minutes of the game that there is a sound that scares away some of the weaker monsters. I mean, I say weaker, relative, clearly relative. The main thing I learned from my short stay with Old Mother Dismas was never to play cards with someone who suffers from temporal confusion, and the patience and focus needed to maintain a conversation with someone who was either hearing me in the previous week or answering something I'd ask the following month. Ah. Classic. Maybe I have temporal dissonance? That sounds like something I experience or temporal confusion. It's something I experience as well. Miss Eumenides Treason. Okay. Miss Treason, the fourth witch I was apprenticed to, specialized in justice and was also an expert in borrowing. Oh, look, we have another amazing portrait. Itha, Nanny Og, and her cat Grebo. I love them. Tario says, that's tough, but I'd like to try it. Here, I got good memory. And Spence says, is that like tempura dissonance, but less tasty? Tempura. Good idea, Spence. Beck Muffin says, I love Grebo. I love him too. He's incredible. He reminds me a little bit of like a worse-tempered Tatters. Key to Life says, the cat is fierce as fuck. Yes, that's Grebo. I thought it was a scarf. Lol, Tario. Very much alive. The devil won't take him. She went blind at 60 years old and deaf at 75. It's weird that they put Nanny Ogg's picture here. Oh, because she's going to be in the next chapter. So this is not who we're talking about. It's Miss Treason still. She went blind at 65 years old and deaf at 75, but it was never a trouble to her as she used the eyes and ears of any nearby animal to see and hear. She taught me about Boffo, which is a kind of headology, which is their word for psychology, based around playing up to people's expectations to earn respect. I left when she had the call, which meant her steadying hand had to be allocated to another witch. So again, this is more hard lore. Edith, come to bed. Come lay down. Come on. I don't know why she has decided that she needs to like soften the floor, but it's not happening. All right, give it a rest. Thank you, ma'am. Sorry. But yeah, I guess I could write Boffo in here, even though it's kind of only mentioned in passing in this chapter. But it is a psyop. It's playing to people's expectations. In order to get, I would say, their cooperation. More so than respect, because you can get them to cooperate out of fear. I guess fear is a kind of respect in some sense. Edith, Key to Life says hi. Well, she says, Edith! Next was Nanny Og, who lives in the least witchy house you can imagine, right in the center of town. She wasn't officially my teacher, but you can't help learning things from her. And of course, Weatherwax chimes in with, and some of those things you might want to unlearn. I'm sorry, can't unlearn. What Nanny doesn't know about midwifery isn't worth knowing, but what she taught me most about was the power of listening. She can listen so hard that you find yourself telling her things you didn't even know you knew. Miss Treason referred to her as a strumpet. I looked this up and it means a woman of easy virtue. Someone to whom virtue comes easily was obviously an excellent teacher. Oh, Tiffany. Oh, Tiffany. That was so Beck Muffin of you. Okay. Okay. Gosh, where to even start? I am going to say, we're gonna call this the power of listening. And we're gonna say, a witch? Instead of Nanny Og, so specifically, witch and listen. So intently that and we'll use Tiffany's words here, you find yourself telling her things didn't know you knew. Space here. But what does that mean? What does it mean to listen hard and for that to compel somebody, to compel your speaker, right, to tell you things that they didn't even know they knew? Kario says, I can see that, but this also means they're easy vice. I wonder what these kind of people are like. I I also love Weatherwax and Granny's friendship. Granny Weatherwax and Nanny Og's friendship. Fantastic. But what does it mean in real life without the fancy words and the wordplay? I think what he is talking about here is active listening, something in our world is passive. Active listening in our world involves a certain level of participation. A high level of attentive participation that encourages subject to enter what I'm going to call a flow state. Now, flow is something that is ascribed mostly to like playing video games or getting very intensely like concentrated in on something. But I think people can hit their flow when they're expositing, when they're talking. I think I hit it all the time. I think streamers hit it all the time. And so that's what I'm going to refer to it as here. A high level of attentive participation that encourages the subject to enter a flow state of exposition leading to increased self-awareness and literally insight. The ability to know things you didn't know you knew. Key to Life says, Lamb and I made plans earlier and she's ready now, so I'm a lurk. Love you. Glad to see many of y'all lurk. Thank you, Key. Have a good lurk. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for helping me mod. Especially while my thingies are claws. Let's go back now that we've had our power of listening. Let's see. So, someone to whom virtue comes easily was obviously an excellent teacher. She knows all the old dark stuff, the magic built into people, and the landscape, which is only remembered as superstitions about touching wood and not walking under black cats, under ladders or across the black cat's path. She taught me about folk memory, which is deep and dark and breathing and never fades. I learned the old rituals, like getting married by jumping over a fire together, and even used it to marry Baron Roland and Letitia Keepsake. An interesting little note from Nanny Og here says, knowing how to marry a couple in a hurry can be very useful if there's a chance the bride might drop a tiny extra guest during the ceremony. Thankfully, our Jason hung on until the reception. He's always loved parties. Oh gosh. Nanny. Tario says, is touching wood their version of touching grass? I think it's their version of salt. Or knocking on wood, maybe. And although touching grass, probably, I think Terry Pratchett would approve of. Beck Beckhoven says, what if a black cat walks on me? Is that bad luck? Because that would explain a lot. I don't think it counts if she is your own familiar. Because that would just get, I think, memory in this way, not so different from consensus, right? And remember the danger that we said about consensus, right? The pressure to agree socially also applies to memory. To have a coherent memory and historical narrative, and when disparate narratives about the same events emerge, it causes cognitive dissonance and dissonance within the folk memory. And so that's why a lot of these fantasies exist, to make sense of these disparities in a way that will be preserved and meaningful. For a common folk memory to exist, there must be consensus. If there cannot be experience, there must be anecdote. Right? The anecdote takes the place of the experience, and the story is processed by the individual as if it was memory. And knowledge is gained, things are learned, things are felt, things are changed. Danny's most powerful magic is in the way she's instantly at home and a part of everyday life anywhere she goes. People trust her and feel at ease with her in a way I'm not sure any other witch has ever managed. I hope one day I'll be even half as good with people as she is. And see, witches are not a monolith. Naniog, unlike a lot of other witches, is highly social, showing that, social magic works too. Tario, so there's magic that'll make you more social. I think it's quite the other way around. I think that what she's saying is that um, the more social you are, the more of a certain kind of magic you can wield. A magic that exists between people when they are talking to each other in that very special way that humans can, use language to connect, and that makes us somewhat unique. So, how do we explain this? I am going to write a potent form of social witchcraft Involves instantly put others at and gain people's trust. Oh, so it's like social links in the Persona games, says Dario. And Beck Beck Muffin says, "Eee, that's a good reference." Um, Social link, go! For anybody who saw the abridged parodies. Another beautiful illustration. This is the chalk. This is the area that Tiffany is supposed to be from in the Discworld. Very much resembles, um, the UK, but we don't have to go there. While I was never an official apprentice to her, Mistress Weatherwax gave me the confidence I needed to start my training. She gave me my first hat, an invisible one, and taught me what it means to be a witch. I learned that everything she does and says is some form of test. I hope I passed those tests, and that I live up to her example. A lot of pressure. But that would be a reference to the novel A Hatful of Sky. And that is because Tiffany is living in an area where witches, just by name, are considered bad and evil and scary. And that's why her grandmother never identified as a witch. Because even though she was doing all of the things that witches do, she didn't wear black and she didn't, wear a pointy hat. And so, nobody kind of, people kind of just understood that she was a caregiver and a leader of the community, but not a witch, of course, because witches are evil, right, and scary. Um, and so Tiffany to decide to become a witch, to be trained, she couldn't exactly just like tell her parents, "I want to be a witch," and start wearing a pointy hat. She kind of had to explore what it really meant to be a witch and what witchcraft really is. out of stubbornness as much as good health. I'm in this picture and I don't like it. And then, of course, Nanny Og comments, being known as the badass witch certainly helped Esme's reputation along in the early days, Nanny Og says. Kario says, as you said, it's what he knew. I would think it's intentional most of the time. It has been argued we can't visualize things we haven't seen. That's true, but I think that means that we need to diversify our palette in terms of the authors that we read. So, I agree with you. It is much easier to write things that you know, and that is usually the more responsible thing. But I think that means that we, as readers and librarians who are curators of collections, must do our due diligence in making sure that we are tapping a diverse selection of perspectives and voices, right? We don't want Tolkien, as brilliant of a man as he was just one man. And we don't want to narrow the world of fantasy down to just his perspective and his world. So, we have to go out of our way to hear perspectives from female authors, from LGBTQ plus authors, from authors that come from various cultural traditions and ethnic backgrounds, from authors that are writing about their experiences, in various parts of the world and at various points in time. The greater the diversity of voices we can gather, honestly, as a librarian, I think is one of the best indications of a extremely high quality collection. If your collection involves not just specificity of specialized knowledge, but also diversity of knowledge, holy Toledo, that is incredible. Oh, sorry, Tario says, for example, sleep science has said every face you see in your dream is a face you've seen in reality. In real life, rather. That means people who live in the urban areas have a lot of faces stored in their heads for their dreams. I have heard this claim by someone. I've not actually known it to be corroborated by a sleep scientist. I know that in reality, sleep and dreams are very poorly understood by neurologists and neurobiologists. I've heard the theory that every face that you see in your dreams is one that you've seen in real life. And that is a branch off of the theory that a dream cannot invent. Right, a dream is entirely reprocessed and repackaged experiences that you've already had and cannot be a creative engine, that part of the brain is not active during dreaming. I'm actually not sure if that is the current agreed upon, a theory surrounding sleep and dreams. I think it has a lot to do with memory in what we remember of our dreams. And so I think some of the reporting on that initial study was a little suspect a bit later in terms of methodology, because it's a bit of a confirmation bias. You can only report what you remember, and if you can remember a face that you've seen in real life, well, you're more likely to remember it again, aren't you? And that's not to speak of the dreams that, are we dreaming when we don't remember that we've dreamed? It's debatable. Beck Muffin knows a lot more about sleep than I do. If she is still in the chat, maybe she can chime in here. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go on a sleep tangent about dreams and sleep. Because as a librarian, I find it extremely important that I only disseminate accurate information to the people. And then Tario says, yes, I agree. They say don't fix what isn't broken, but what if we want to just make a different device? Yes. Beck Muffin says, honestly, we just know so little about dreams and sleep, even less about dreams than sleep. Right, that's okay, that was the very first thing I said, right? Like that I think that any assertion about sleep and dreams as being something that like we know that science has proven are immediately very suspect, because there's just not that much out there that there exists a sort of scientific consensus about when we're talking about sleep and dreaming and the brain, honestly, like by extension. I mean, even most psychiatric medication can only be described as thought to work because we don't actually have proof that that is how those things are happening in the brain. Beck Muffin goes on to say, even our understanding of phases of sleep is always changing. Agreed. That is also my understanding of the current literature. Tario says, like, I'm sure my brain has combined multiple things and created images for me during sleep that I relay into artwork. That is really cool, Tario. Beck Muffin says, like, we used to think REM, R-E-M, which is rapid eye movement, in case anybody is not familiar, was the only time we dream, but we dream in other phases, and not always in REM. Yeah, so that is just one example of how there kind of was this common theory, and it was kind of struck down relatively shortly after it was posited. That is how fast the science is changing on sleep studies, you know, just all the time as technology improves, as sample sizes get bigger, as we continue to explore other areas of neurology and psychology and the intersection between those and like culture and environment. It is it's all kind of murky as far as I'm aware. Spence says, I read that quickly as phases of sheep. Beckman says, don't get me started on sleep science. I try to follow it closely because I have a sleep disorder. Yeah, sorry. I didn't want to out you, Beckman. I didn't want to speak for you. I knew you were more up to date on the publications and the news regarding sleep studies than I was. I would have to kind of be pulling from um, a quick cursory Google session, and I didn't want to do that right here, right now, if possible. Beck Muffin says, nah, it's okay, lol, but my knowledge is pretty centered on narcolepsy. True. But listen, just like I was saying, visibility is important. And having diversity of perspective is important. Beck Muffin has this specialized knowledge because it is of special importance to her in her life. And so having her here in the stream, giving her perspective as somebody with experience and a specialized knowledge on this matter that I am aware of, makes it so that I am able to be more accurate for you guys here. So keep that in mind. We just did the thing in real time. Tario, I love it. Curiosity over fear. We love that here. And thank you for being open-minded to being educated. That's what a librarian loves, is to inform people, right? A librarian, as much as she loves books and she loves furnishing people with those books so that they can be entertained, or amused, or informed, no matter what it is, right? It's all information and it's all about sharing and providing that information for people. We love it. Beck Muffin says, I'm here, I'm queer, and I'm sleepy. I think that is something truly special. I just realized that my charger has not been in my webcam this whole time. I have no idea how much battery I have left, or how it's even still alive. And I'm not going to make the mistake of looking at it directly because that would be silly. But honestly, it's a mystery. I wish I had like a little hand mirror that I could just hold up, see what it it says. Hopefully it's charging now. Gosh. Don't worry, guys. Even if the little webcam had shut off, it would not have necessarily like ended the stream. I'm mic'd up through my headset, and I could always switch to something else to put on the screen for y'all. Okay. Proposals for who will inherit a steading are usually put forward by senior witches over a good buffet at the funeral of the soon-to-be deceased witch. And to put a little footnote down there, it says, witches get the call, which is the knowledge they're going to die, a day or two in advance. Some choose to hold the funeral early so they don't miss out on a good party. Weatherwax says, I'm sure I have They're as polite as duchesses when they don't like each other. You'd lose a limb to frostbite if you walked between them when they were greeting each other. Beck Muffin says, I forgot Tiffany had siblings, right? They stop being relevant so fast. One book later. So I am going to put witches often have strong wills and strong opinions. Their egos are often born of experience and serve as a bulwark against what am I trying to say? Against distance, which is inevitable change which witches often bring. Or herald, I guess. Right, because there's no way to be a caregiver and a supporter and a social actor in the community without having a certain amount of ego. You have to truly in your chest believe that what you are doing is right and that the naysayers are haters and that it is for the best of everyone to either win them over or outmaneuver them for the collective. Right? And I think, in our world that could look simply like, not necessarily taking up arms or anything, but being something and saying something. Right? Again, if we go back to the social compliance thing again, the emperor's clothes, in that fable, only a child who lacks the social awareness to be polite is able to call out the absurdity of what is going on. And only once that child has verbalized that are the adults able to agree, even if they agreed all along, right? They weren't able to externalize that in any capacity, and therefore the collective think, the folk memory would have gone down in the history books, right, in the anecdotes very differently. But we have this version of it because that child did say something, and the child said something because it was just obvious, and there is no moral there's nothing moral about the truth, immoral about the truth. But it's impolite, and that is the absurdity. that the truth can be considered impolite and the truth can be denied for the sake of being polite. So yeah, you gotta have a strong will. You gotta have a bit of an ego. You've gotta believe in yourself in the arrogant sense, that it means you believe yourself over some others, certain others, and that's okay sometimes. Duck McMuffin says, if you see something, say nothing, and drink to forget. Welcome to Night Vale. Diddly! Anyway. Anybody who is a Welcome to Night Vale fan in the chat, please feel free to sound off. I love Welcome to Night Vale. I think it is a beautiful piece of media, kind of a revelation for me personally in terms of what narrative and meta-narrative could be. And very important to me as somebody who did just way too much driving alone up and down highways for hours and hours and hours and needed some entertainment in those lonely moments. Mario says, yeah, it's hard to follow someone that's doubtful. Right. I mean, I think it's reasonable to have certain doubts, and it's important to have the humility to, hear criticism and hear judgment, but consensus does not equal truth is the important takeaway, even though consensus does sometimes feel like the ultimate good. You sometimes have to be a disrupting element, right? If what's going on is not right. And if you have doubts, to voice them, right? Like, don't keep that shit to yourself. You see something and it's sussy, you tell us. I want to know. Head witch. No witch will admit there's such thing as a head witch, but Mistress Weatherwax, Granny to her friends, is well known to be that witch. Oh, she's that witch. I see. Even the Nakmak call her the Hago Hags, and there's not a mountain troll or wolf that will dare attack her when she's alone in the forest. Very few can come close to her in the feats she's achieved. She can share the mind of any, and then here's her. I think this is an old cover of Weird Sisters, one of the witch books from the series. I think so. That's Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Og, and Magrat Garlic, who I'm sure we will get to. But yeah, you can see. And not Margaret. I'm not making that up. It's Magrat Garlic. Okay? It's like that on purpose. But she can share the mind of any animal, even a swarm of bees. Nanny tells me that she defeated the Queen of the Elves, put King Varence II on the Lancre throne, and even took down her own sister, who was destroying the kingdom of Genua. I thought it was just rumor, but Queen Magrat told me that when a family of vampires tried to turn Mistress Weatherwax, she ended up infecting them instead, leaving them thirsting for tea instead of blood. So while we don't have a head witch, I'm glad it's Mistress Weatherwax and that she's on our side. These are all very fun references to the other witch books that are not involving Tiffany Aching. Tiffany Aching is kind of the second generation witch. We start with her in childhood, but Granny Weatherwax, Nanny Og, and Magrat Garlic are kind of the Generation 1 witches. They are in their full witchy power when we meet them in the first book involving witchcraft, and we kind of see them pop up again and again and again in other books as Terry Pratchett so masterfully weaves Discworld into this coherent, extended narrative universe encompassing these many, many characters, all having their own adventures, right, simultaneously. Covens! Other than the witch trials, you don't see more than a couple of witches together unless they really can't avoid it. But younger witches tend to be a bit more social, so covens do spring up now and then. It's old-fashioned to think that they need to be made up of 3 witches, maiden, mother, and crone, crossed out, wrote the other one. And no matter how old she is, no witch wants to be the crone. Even the word coven. I disagree. I want to be the crone. I am ready for my crone era. Alright, I've had enough. I'm done. I'm tired. Give me the arcane secrets. Give me the occult knowledge. Give me the uncanny wisdom. I want it. I would like it. Any day now is fine. Backpack Muffin says, you're basically already just a young crone. That is the sweetest thing you have ever said to me. Thank you so much. I'm gonna pin this comment forever. There we go. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I want young crone on a shirt or something. Can somebody please work on the graphic art for that, or the what that would look like? If you let me know if you guys want Deanie merch. I could make some kind of clip art nightmare that just says young crone. All right. Even the word coven isn't used that much, except in books that spell magic with a K. Where I grew up, everyone thought that witches danced around on moonlit nights without their drawers on, but I've been told that's optional. Fun though, as long as you know where all the nettles and thistles are. Keep an eye out for sudden hedgehogs, says Nanny Hog. When I first started out, I was invited into a coven made up of all the young witches in the area. There were 8 of us, and it was chaotic and a bit silly at first, with talk of opening the circle and summoning the world's 4 corners before we even did anything. We didn't dance around without our drawers on, but we did share news, warn each other about potential trouble, and talk about what we'd been learning on our various apprenticeships. It was quite nice to spend time with other witches around my age, and we've learned to support each other when needed. Even helping those who act like they're doing you a favor by letting you support them. Okay, I'm in this picture and I don't like it. Although I wish I was in this picture because they are beautiful. Oh my gosh. This is my first coven. And from left to right, we have Dimity Hubbub, Petulia Gristle, Lucy Warbeck, Gertrude Tearing, Lulu Darling, and Henrietta Bilk. I am obsessed. Look at them. They're so precious. Oh my gosh. I've read the book that they are in. But I have never seen this illustration before. This is precious. I am obsessed. Look at all their different hats. Oh my god. Missing is Anagramma Hawkins, I asked everyone to make sure to tell Anagramma the date they were supposed to pose for Mr. Kidzi, but it appears every single one of them forgot. Anagramma is not the most popular in their little coven. But I think this is an important comment, so we're gonna open our tome again here. What do you guys think I've spotted out here? Let's see if we're playing Blue's Clues or not. Is there big concept that hasn't really been talked about yet, at least in this book, but that is community, right? Basically, what they're saying here is that while witches are a highly independent lot, community is still key to success, survival, and well-being, honestly. Let's point to a couple things that they talk about, right, that do transfer to us. The dancing around at night without your drawers on. Listen, if that is what floats your boat, listen, safe, sane, consensual. That's all I got to say. No judgment here. But what they do mention is that they share news / information. This is so important, especially for me, a librarian. They warn each other. About potential trouble. And they talk about what they're learning, which I am going to keep in here, even though you think, okay, but they're apprentice witches, they're learning. Not everybody is learning something. Wrong, incorrect. Everybody is always learning all the time. You don't always acknowledge it, but it's happening. Talk about we'll use the impartial one. There is learning. Again, they are sharing information. It is all about freedom and sharing of, I'm going to put quotes of important, but that's just because all information is important. Important information. It is access to timely information. Whoops. That's what the warning part is about, right? The urgent information. And it is about sharing that information, maintaining that access, right? Sharing and maintaining access. Because in the structure that Terry Pratchett has established, these witches then take that information, they take those updates, and they go back to their communities, their homesteads, right, or their steadings, and disseminate and use that information for the betterment of their communities as well. So, Ontario says, that's what's happening right now. Amazing. We're sharing information, we're learning. It's happening everywhere all the time. But witches are people who are aware of this, and right, and they make sure to maintain access to this information. Because when access to this information is threatened, witches are threatened. And when witches are threatened, everyone is threatened, because witches are the supporters, right? They are the caretakers, the protectors, the caregivers. They are the ones who stop the people who have needs beyond what they are capable of meeting from Sorry. The subtitles are doing their best. But they are just an algorithm and cannot make judgment calls on what I am saying based off of context that they cannot understand. So, and I have them to not censor cursing because, well, it is what it is. But I think it's interesting. I think isolation, rather than leading to obtaining the dark arts, is more like saying witches already have access to the dark arts, right? Like, witches have access to the dark arts and are ready to use them at any point. But what stops them from doing that is other witches and their community. It's staying in your community and not disengaging to an extent where you are no longer coping with reality. And I think that what that means is that, like, we all have the capacity to go dark. We all have the capacity to obtain the dark arts. And one thing that causes people to turn to those dark arts more so than people that don't is becoming overly isolated, right? Like, I think some isolation, fine, which is clearly need to have some space from each other, given how strong personalities can clash. Um, but too much space, too much isolation, um, can lead to burnout, exhaustion, right? Because you're not being supported at all. If you're supporting your community, if you're supporting everybody around you, who is supporting you? Important question. Watches the watcher. Yeah, it is funny though, Tario. I'll give you that. Um, it is funny. It is funny. But yeah, I think that is the gist of that. Is that we check on each other, we check on other people that are um are serving their community, or are in service of others, and show up for them as best that we can, even though we know that they're highly independent and capable in their own right. and have a good time hanging out. Blackjack has a great chill vibe, just kind of talking you through the day. There's also a kitty involved, so much like Edith is the star here. There's another little star over there. Oh, Onion. Well, Deanie, your stream was great, and your finger covers are so cool. I'm glad you liked them. Thank you so much. That means a lot. I'm glad you had a good time here. All right, have a good time with Blackjack Cat, and like I said, tell him who sent you, and I'll see you guys next time.
I don't know what it is, but we're going inside.